Welcome to another episode of Unleashing the Future of Work. And today I am joined by my good buddy, Lucas Krause, who is the president of the National Corporate Housing Association. And he is a National Corporate Housing, I'm sorry, not association, which is a global multi-brand corporate housing company that provides fully furnished temporary housing throughout the United States, Canada, EMEA, APAC, and Latin America. And today Lucas and I are going to be talking about leadership, and probably even empathizing of some of the things that are going on in the world right now. But also, what should leadership look like in the future of work? I'm really excited to have him on the show. He's a great friend. We've had great conversations before in the past, and I think this is going to be an awesome episode. With that said, let me bring him on. And please, if you're tuning in, let us know where you're tuning in from today. Shout us out in the comments, show us some love, and we'll make sure to recognize you throughout our conversation. So, Lucas, hey man.
Hey, Tim, thanks for having me.
Thanks, man. Thanks for finding time. So, talk to me, man. How are you doing with everything going on in the world today, man?
Yeah, doing as well as you can. I mean, it's a tough
Yeah.
time, obviously, but there's so much going on, and you bring a heavy heart here that so many people are impacted in so many different ways. So yeah, I'm trying to bring my best self and try to make the most of the opportunity that we have here. But I'd be lying if didn't acknowledge that it is just obviously a very tough time.
Yeah. I would love for you to share a little bit more about your background, man, and how you got to doing the work that you do with National Corporate Housing, and what led to this point where you're at now.
Yeah, so I won't bore everyone because it's a very eclectic set of experiences. So I will do the Cliff Notes version of 20 years here and in a very short window. But no, I grew up in Midwest Chicago area, and then did my undergrad in Indiana University, and had some internships in the financial service and telecom, and graduated after September 11th, which was another tough job market and was really difficult to find jobs, and ended up working for AT&T. And I did take a little brief hiatus from the work world and ended up playing professional baseball in the New York Mets organization.
Yeah.
The traditional route there. But it was a great learning experience, and you and I have talked at length about how that reshaped how I attacked kind of my career in management, and got very intentional about developing my skills. So once I washed out of baseball I re-entered the workforce and worked for the Capital Group for Quiznos, but had a whole new kind of outlook and vigor on how I attacked my career, and built a clear vision of what I wanted to accomplish. And as I used the term intentional, I got very intentional about what I was doing and how I was developing my skills, and was really fortunate to go from relatively an entry-level role to leading operational components for east half the country, which had almost 2,600 locations, and then even leading operational efforts for international brand, which was really powerful. And then left there in 2008, started my own business, and I learned I was teaching thousands of people how to start a business and build it because it's franchising. And then when I did it, I made all the same mistakes I told people not to. So
but you live and you learn.
Yeah, but a great experience. Got that built up, and got to maintenance mode, and then from there ended up with Real Property Management. Was kind of a turnaround opportunity. It was a franchise concept, and really got to learn some of those leadership skills that I had taken, and not only grew from great mentors, but mistakes I made along the way.
Yeah.
Put those to practice, and it was a great success story. We took an organization that had about 100 locations to over 330, managing 15,000 homes to over 60,000 in a 7-year window, and had a lot of success there, and got that business sold. And so just did that about 2 years ago to a private equity firm, and got fortunate meeting with the ownership and leadership of National Corporate Housing, which is the leader in, as you mentioned, furnished rentals. And not so much as a turnaround, but really helping them build and scale. Extremely successful at growing, but reworking our infrastructure from an IT and a support standpoint. And so in a lot of ways, it's a healthy kind of organizational kind of turnaround of elements, but it's a great, healthy, growing organization. So testing me and taxing me in a whole different way. And it's been a lot of fun because I see each of those stops as just rewarding, because you take so many positives and negatives away, and you learn and grow and become better. And I just believe that that's the most important piece, is to take something away from every experience. So hopefully that wasn't too long, but that was 20 years in a short.
No, that's amazing. And I think it speaks to your, you had quite a journey, right? Very dynamic in a sense, and I kind of want to probe a little bit deeper. And, what are those experiences like? What are 3 things about leadership that those experiences taught you? Because it seems as if you've been on turnaround projects, but then you've also been on projects where, you have to do a transformation and you have to elevate, you have to build community, help others build businesses, as you mentioned, so if you were to kind of like give 3 nuggets on what those experiences have taught you about leadership, what would they be?
Yeah, I'd say early in my career, and I had some very fortunate mentors to help me understand the soft and the emotional side.
Yeah.
Depending on which personality profiles, I'm very direct and want to get to it and just attack. The understanding of how do you compel the heart, not only just the mind when you're leading, because you're like, no, I addressed the logical component. We should just do this. And to understand that there is truly an emotional piece in compelling those to really follow. Because if you don't really get people to follow, you're just taking a hike, right? Is that the old adage? The other side is really modeling the right behaviors and that commitment. And I've always prided myself on doing that. And that's actually come easier because I don't mind rolling up my sleeves. I grew up in the Midwest and that Midwest mentality. And so I've never done anything that I haven't asked someone else to do. Yeah. So that was a great learning. But as I grew and took started participating in larger organizations, that actual strength became a weakness. And I had to be better about elevating and delegating those items and still lead by example. And I'm not discounting that, but not going overboard and shouldering too much of the burden and responsibility. Because leaders, I always prided myself on developing and talent and taking those opportunities. But when I was very prideful of, hey, let me lead by example and do, I was also maybe limiting the number of opportunities that individuals had to learn and grow and take on that responsibility because I didn't share those as effectively. And it showed as I grew with larger organizations and had more responsibility. There's only so much I could get done. And then I realized that I was compromising my effectiveness, but I also was robbing individuals of additional opportunities to learn and grow. So it's funny how a strength became also a weakness at one time.
Yeah, no, I love what you mean about modeling. I think that's actually one of the most key things I've learned and picked up on as a leader is you want to model the future or the type of leadership you want to see within your organization and outside of your organization. Because if you don't show it, people aren't going to understand what's the standard and how do they operate around the standard, even above the standard.
Yeah, and you have to be very thoughtful about that and go into it knowing that as the leader in that modeling, you can't have bad days like everyone else. and if you truly are trying to lead, because you're always on stage, and it's so important that you go into it. And maybe you had a very difficult meeting. You're meeting with attorneys and you're dealing with whether it's a tough situation, and then you're going to a call with a new hire or a feel-good call to pat a sales executive on the back about good things they're doing. If you don't take that moment and come into it and go, okay, what am I trying to accomplish here? What's important that I convey, and take that moment, you'll bring that negative interaction into it and you'll really compromise yourself. Like you might've been well-intended in wanting to lead. However, if you don't take that beat, you really do impair your ability to deliver and model that out, because you are the brand ambassador. You are the cheerleader and the leader. You're the one bringing the optimism. That's so important, especially in times like this. I look and I talk with our sales executive, our sales team, encouraging them because they're doing great activity. They're strengthening their relationships with our clients, and I want to reward that. But guess what? In this time with an economic lockdown and the pandemic, they're not getting the same results, and so it's very easy for them to be discouraged. And of course, I'm discouraged to where we're at, but I need to make sure I'm reinforcing that positivity and all that right effort. And if I don't do that, it just reinforces maybe some negativity that's going on in their own minds and feeling questioning their efforts. So that's kind of a real example of how just living it today.
Yeah, no, that's so powerful. So I want to show love to our current listeners, and please, what are your thoughts on effective leadership, or what are some of the skills and practices you've learned and that you bring with you when it comes to leading? So shout out to Omo Wunmi, who is tuning in, and she is tuning in from Nigeria, I believe. So let
Great.
us know. Louis, who's tuning in from Dallas, Texas. What's up, man? Let us know where you're tuning in. We're going to shout you out and show you love. And if you have any questions for Lucas as we continue to talk, let us know. We'll definitely make sure to probe and have a discussion with you. So, Lucas, man, I want to talk to you. I want to have you talk a little bit more about the future of work, right? Our favorite topic. It's now, it's present, and I think it's constantly being molded. I think what we've seen, recently is that there is a lot of economic turmoil, as you mentioned. Millions of people have been furloughed. There's, I believe, 45 million jobs have been lost,
Yeah, so I think,
right?
yeah, most recent numbers I saw, and honestly, I think you're going to see it grow even a little more here as the PPP kind of ends for that
Yeah.
first round, and things slowly open up. That we may not be at the bottom quite yet, which is scary.
Yeah, yeah. So I want to kind of get your thoughts. Where do you see things going in terms of what the workplace will look like in the future? We are currently seeing that everyone is embracing remote work. What about you all at, National Corporate House? Are you all embracing it as well? What are your thoughts on this?
Embracing, yes. Getting exhausted by yes. Zoom is a four-letter word, not only technically but also figuratively. Because it just is. And so it's interesting because you can be productive in a lot more ways, but it presents different challenges and it's a different
True.
dynamic. And so you have to adjust. Individuals like myself, and you talk through the team, how do you find that variety and how do you find those natural breaks to get clarity and to think and
Yeah.
invest in? Because it's really easy to just we have, and it's me and my wife in the house, so we have the office up here in the basement downstairs, and so we just take turns on kind of switching who uses the workspace. But there'll be times I'm like, wait, it was, because it was snowing once in Denver, and I didn't come up till the evening. I'm like, it was snowing all day. I didn't even come up for air, and so you can so much. But kind of tying back to your question and kind of where things go, I do think this is going to change things in a lot of ways where there is comfort. You realize maybe you don't need to have some of those face-to-face and travel as much. Technology has moved forward. I think as you look at traditional office spaces and those expenses, I think folks are questioning how much do I need? Now, there will be traditional office spaces, but I've tried to read and study up and talk to those in my network, other leaders, and people are really rethinking how much space is really necessary.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, I think maybe we have accelerated this natural trend of getting more comfortable from working remotely in different areas. And we might have fast forwarded 2, 3, 5 years because of just necessity. So
Yeah.
I do think that there will be a little more comfort and understanding that you can be productive, because businesses have been, and obviously not maybe productive from other reasons, but the output of individuals who are working from home and under some challenging situations, because this is not just normal working from home. These are schools shut down, and you have individuals you have to empathize with who
Yeah.
are juggling teaching, picking up a whole nother responsibility, helping the teaching plans with their children. And so the fact that I'd say a lot of people across America, it's something to be very proud of. We're productive under some very challenging circumstances.
Amen, brother. Amen. I agree with that 100%. And I think, and I think it's these same circumstances that have caused the revolts and a lot of the tension that we're seeing right now as a society. It's almost as if when everyone's forced to stay home and there's this lack of motivation in economic activity, people are going to be upset and they're going to want more. And then the debts of the continued deaths of Black lives also adds to that dimension. And, I am hoping, right, that we are learning from this as we see it unfold and we're actually trying to build something better.
Yes, and I mean you hit. I mean it's obviously two things, and this pandemic and being locked down is one element,
Yeah.
and I'd say the tragic and senseless death of Black lives, and
Yeah.
disproportionately is there's a real issue. And it's sad that we're in this place at this time of day, and I'm not pretending as as a white male to have a true understanding, but I can appreciate the tragic elements in that there's injustice and there's racism still prevalent in a lot of areas. It's not just Minneapolis. And you can understand, and again, I can't fully appreciate, but why there is outrage and anger, because we have not come as far as a society as all of us would hope for equality. And so you get what's going on, and just really hope that we can move forward. And that's where I try to challenge it, from my vantage point, not to be a passive observer. How can I help? Really trying to listen and learn from those I really value and trust of how can we help them move this forward, because it is important. And I know that's not where we're trying to go, but just since you opened up the topic, just figured I should acknowledge that.
No, powerful acknowledgement, man. So let's talk a little bit about the skills necessary to thrive the future of work, man. Right? Because one of the things that we're doing with Guide is we're really trying to help people who are in the workforce gain those skills that are necessary to success on the job or beyond the job. And I want to get your thoughts, man. As a leader who's led amazing teams, distributed remote teams, what have been the skills that you've put to the table so you can effectively lead these teams?
Well, it really requires a lot of versatility and being very well-rounded in a lot of ways. As you and I have talked about having a roadmap on what you want to do and what your role requires. And I aspired to get to leadership roles. And as I met with mentors and interviewed them of, what does it take to be successful at all, was, your presentation skills, your interpersonal, your ways to persuade. You're also being well-versed in all disciplines of the business so that you can help. Now, you don't have to have a great depth in each area, but a well-rounded understanding and respect so that you can ask, the important questions to understand, and you can be a leader and impact broadly. That's really important. So that's when I say versatility, is that you almost have to be not an expert in any one particular area, but you have to have an appreciation and a basic understanding of a very wide range of aspects of the business. That you need to be able to jump through the financials, look through them critically, and then get on a call with the sales team and understand what challenges they're going through, and then talk to, shift gears and meet with your operational team and understand maybe why they're trying to implement different technology. And that can just be your morning. And so it does.
That's true.
And so, as you ask that question, I think it's kind of, they say dress for the job you want, but it's also prepare for the job you want. Get a better understanding of what skills are necessary and start to develop it and round those skills out so that you can be successful. And I know that's a lot of what obviously you preach and teach, right? I value quite a bit is being very thoughtful where you dedicate your time and develop your skills so that you can set yourself up for success.
Yeah. Shout out to Sonia, who's tuning in, and she's listening as she's driving, so she doesn't want us to call on her. And shout out to Edgar as well, who is saying this is a great talk. I want to ask you, Lucas, at what moment in your career, did you find mentorship to be really crucial to your success?
Minute one, say in career 2.0, after I left baseball and re-entered the workforce. Because I look at it two different ways, because I looked at it, I came from a top flight business school. I had multiple internships, and I don't think I had the right humility that first time when I went into it. And I thought I knew a lot, and then very quickly started to realize I didn't know a lot. And to me, mentorship is something you need to invest in. You need to come into it because they're investing time in you. You need to be prepared and deliver value to them, but also be very respectful of their time. And so then after baseball, when I came back in, I had a plan and I wanted to attack it. And I came into it with more of a sponge mentality of I want to learn and grow. And it changed. And so I sought out people that I really valued their skills and what I could learn from them. And it's funny, I talked with a group of sales executives here a few weeks ago, and they asked this question about mentoring and how it evolved. Because at first it was very, I'll say, certain skills of like, okay, you're a great presenter. How can I learn from you? Well, now as I learn and grow, I seek out even broader than just business of people I really respect who, have different talents or a great world view, and I really try to round that out to be a better person and seek those individuals out to help me grow outside of even the business world. So just be a better human. better husband, better just friend. And so I feel really appreciative that I've learned and grown from some amazing people, and I still cultivate those relationships and invest in them. But it's expanded outside of just the business sphere, and to me, that's great.
That's powerful, and I love your point about being well-rounded when it comes to mentorship, because I think a lot of people see mentorship as being one way, one-dimensional, but you can also teach your mentor, but also you can have mentors/sponsors to help you with different areas of your life.
Of course, and you nailed that. It is a symbiotic relationship, and you can invest into it. And especially when you're the mentee early in that, you're going to have to work a lot harder than them and invest. And it's taking them out to, they may not have as much time, taking them out to lunches, engaging at times where you can get that time. But as I've gone through it, I've always been there to help. And what can I do? And ask that question. And you'd be surprised, because maybe as you're young and you have a mentor who's older, they may have tech questions, questions with their kids, something you can relate with. And so bring value wherever you can to help, because they're helping you and they're investing in you.
Powerful, man. That's so powerful. I love that. I love that so much. So, Lucas, I would love for you to share, for someone who's struggling to find a sponsor in their career right now, someone that can help elevate them, what do you recommend them to do?
Well, I think it should be in line with where, first off, seek out what you're trying to do and how is that individual person. So be very focused, because a lot of times I've seen it and had people ask, and they go, "Hey, will you be my mentor?" Well, what do you want me to help you with? Right. I might not be good at that. I might be able to recommend someone who's better, because there. So I think having a clear picture of why I'm engaging in this conversation and a purpose, is so important, because then I can help. The other is, it also helps you and go, I could go, "Tim, you're just so charismatic. You have a great way of presenting. I can use flattery to my favor of, I really admire those qualities about you. And I'd love to learn on how you developed and harnessed those skills. Would you be willing to spend some time with me and maybe grab coffee or go out to lunch, so that I could take away some, learn from you and grow?" And obviously I see this as a two-way street. How could I help you? Obviously, if there's anything on your mind or anything I can do, I may not be in the same position of strength and developed in my career as you, but this is a great chance for me to learn from you. And would you be willing to do that maybe once a month or once a quarter?
That's it. That's the ask. I love it. You just gave our community an amazing template. I absolutely love that. That's over. It sounds as if you've used that before too.
Well, I used to, quite a bit for a while there. And then now I coach it back. I'm like, here's how you could have asked me.
So powerful, man. So Lucas, I would love for you to share a little bit about some of the things that, you all are doing right now to, create the culture within your company and really sustain during these times.
It's really interesting, because, it's a great culture, and I have to applaud, Tom Atchison is the founder and CEO who started this, and a great leadership team, and a great, some chief people officer, Mr. Gregorick. And some individuals there have been very intentional about their culture. So what I came into and what I was drawn to National was a very people-centric organization. And so what's been great about this is how's it evolved. We have a lot of strong core values about doing the right thing. People matter. We're driven to succeed. And so these things guide us as an organization. Yeah. But in this time, we've had to evolve. How does that fit in this new reality? And so we've been more proactive about communicating and engaging. We have a diversity and inclusion, committee, and we're trying to get them more active, especially in this time. How do we create this dialogue and have some of these things that are uncomfortable? Because as we talk about those topics, a lot of times people will push away because it is challenging and afraid to say the wrong thing, and try to create a safe space where it's okay to have an open dialogue, and that everyone's coming here about growing and understanding. So we're trying to invest in really putting that diversity and inclusion group committee more in the forefront. But I'm even being more active, I'm doing weekly videos I used to do them every few weeks to the whole company, but I record them weekly. And then we'll sometimes do live for interactive Q&A. We'll do virtual meet and greets or happy hours. We're really trying to make as many personal touches to create that connectivity while everyone's kind of isolated into their situation. And
Yeah.
so it's really more of not changing who we are and our identity of our core values. It's evolving them to adapt to this situation and the constraints and challenges that we're facing. And so
Yeah.
we're at our heart, we're still the same organization and value the same things. They're just manifesting in different ways given the new environment.
I love that. I think I love how you're mentioning that you all are adapting to the times, to the context, because I think so many organizations, they're failing to do that, and it's affecting them in the public eye. It's causing them to go bankrupt or lose brand equity, as I like to call it. But, I think fundamentally every organization can keep their culture, keep their values. But how are you thinking about it in a time where, you do have to stand up for what is right? You have to choose a side. I think now more than ever, business does have to, you don't have to be political, but you have to have principles. And, the successful organizations like yours, the ones who are very principled in their thinking, understand that principles don't change, but how you embrace them, how you adapt them, communicate them, and rally everyone around them probably have to over time.
Oh, very much so. And I think you're seeing a shift. And it's, the byproduct of some of the cultural changes here. Again, we have a long way to go, I think, as a country and as a society. But you're seeing companies being more rewarded for thinking globally and thinking about sustainability. And some of that evolution is occurring. I mean, I believe we're in the early stages of that being rewarded in ways, and it is being rewarded, as people vote with their wallets. But love to see that continue and be even more prevalent as we evaluate, our contribution globally and what we do to really move us forward.
Yeah, I love that, Lucas. Thank you so much. So if you have just tuned in or just joined, I am talking to Lucas Krause, who is the president of National Corporate Housing. Phenomenal leader. And we've been talking about leadership, mentorship, and how organizations can adapt during these times. Lucas, man, I would love for you to, let us know what is one thing our community can do as we cap off, so they can become a better leader for tomorrow, man.
I think it's important to know who you are and what's important to you. And when it's, because it starts from the inside out, because then you can truly be your authentic self. And when that comes across, that's what people want to get behind with leaders. Because you can say all the right things and have all the hollow sentiments. All said and done. No, it's true, as you know. And if it's not truly authentic, you're not going to have the passion. You're going to tire out. But people are also going to see it. And so it is be, introspective and really evaluate what is important to you and really latch onto that and use those as your guiding force. Because if you start there, then you can kind of from the outside or from the inside out really lead in the right way.
Love it. So can the people connect with you on LinkedIn or Twitter?
Of course.
Hopefully?
Oh,
Yeah.
well, and Tim, you and I know this, and you know this, and so just for everyone else, I'm really passionate about this professional development. That's kind of how we linked up, that we have that shared passion. As you know, we've noted that I wrote a book about treating yourself like a business and how to manage your career like a high functioning business. I love these discussions, and I engage in a lot of mentor sessions, and so I always offer it up if folks do have interest in how I can help. Please take advantage, because it is something I do enjoy and I am passionate about. So
Love it. And make sure to get the book. And the book is still on Amazon, correct?
It is, yeah. The Business of You.
The Business of You. And I'll make sure to drop a link in the comments for you all. Lucas, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode, man. We should have you for a future episode if you're interested.
I'd love to. And it's just an excuse for you and I to catch up anyways, because we always have fun.
I love it. Thank you so much, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Be good and safe.
You too, man. All right. Thank you all so much for tuning in. In a few minutes, I'm going to take a pause and a break, but we will have the amazing Allison Baum, who is an investor with one of the top firms in the world investing in the future of work. I'm really excited to have her on the show. She's brilliant in what she does. She has an amazing blog where she writes about what we are currently experiencing right now in a remote first distributed world. And I'm going to be talking to her a little bit about what's going on in the world, leadership, as well as what does that look like in the future of work and how companies can start thinking about equity from the ground up as they create their culture. So I will take a little pause and I will come back soon. I hope you all are well. Talk to you all in a few. All right, y'all. Welcome back to Unleashing the Future of Work, a guide podcast. So, our next guest is going to be the amazing Allison Baum, who is a general partner at, I hope I'm saying this right, Semper Virens, which is a strategic early stage fund focused on the future of work. They invest in workplace technology, health tech, and fintech, anything related to how people will work, live, and make money in the future, which is fantastic. And she's been really prolific. I've actually followed her work for quite some time, and her blog on Medium, and talking about what the future of work is going to look like and what are some of the changes leaders and companies need to prepare for. And in the fact, we're kind of seeing it take fold now, but it isn't all the way there yet. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. And I think, talk also a little bit more about how can organizations create more equity in the workplace moving forward as well. So I'm really excited to dive deep with her and have her share a little bit more about herself. Allison, welcome to the show.
Hi, good to be here.
How are you holding up during these times?
Wow. I mean, I don't even know what to say. What an incredible time
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
alive and to be in this space and to be witnessing the change that's happening right now. I'm like terrified but energized. It's all the feels.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. It's true. I'd love for you to share a little bit about how long you've been doing the work and you've been in the space of venture capital.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I never planned on getting into venture and I really didn't even know what it was until, frankly, a year or two into being part of it. But for me, venture capital is really just a means to an end around this mission of changing the future of work. And I've been at this kind of intersection of finance, technology, and the future of work really since for a decade now. I started my career on Wall Street and was trading in the public markets. And through the financial crisis, saw that when times are tough, jobs get eliminated. And so there were a lot of really high value jobs being automated all around me, people that were making millions of dollars a year the year before and being replaced by algorithms. And so I figured this was going to be a pretty big problem going forward. So ended up joining what was at the time an early stage company called General Assembly, which was really committed to empowering people with the skills they need to pursue work that they love. And that meant empowering people with technology skills. So we worked with individuals as well as employers to reskill and upskill people in web development, digital marketing, user experience design, the building blocks of the digital economy. And I moved to Asia and launched our business out there and just saw that there are so many exciting solutions to big global problems that were being developed, particularly in the US and Europe, and that we could have an even bigger impact by bringing those solutions to markets where they weren't necessarily benefiting from the same kind of innovation ecosystems that we have here. And so that was when I established my first venture fund called Fresco Capital. We were focused on these same problems: education, future of work, and healthcare. And we were investing primarily in the US and Europe and helping companies launch internationally. So that brought me to Japan, which was a huge adventure, and in total made about 70 investments through that fund, many of which have done quite well. I helped about half of them expand internationally in some way. And then figured through that process, I think just saw how much venture capital, although we're investing in the future, we're still very much living in the past as an industry. And a big mission for me was trying to transform venture capital itself. But, and I think we'll touch on this later when we talk about how we can bring more equity to the workplace in general. But I think it's hard to change something that you don't truly understand. And I felt like the best way to understand the system and the fundamental kind of factors that shaped the way venture works today, I really needed to be here in the middle of it. So I moved to the Bay Area and joined a more traditional venture fund, learned a lot that way. And then this is my next go at it at Semper Virens, building more of an ecosystem approach focused on these sectors.
Yeah. And I think what I love about your background too is you have a global worldview about how the future of work is changing. You've lived in Japan. Are there other locations that you've kind of been tracking and seeing some of the trends that are happening as well, aside from America?
Absolutely. We've been very focused globally for a long time now. And what was so interesting, I spent time in Hong Kong and saw the rise and challenges of that local ecosystem, saw China really take over the region, saw a lot of opportunities in Southeast Asia as well as in Japan. And I think what's really interesting is that my experience with places outside of Silicon Valley has been that they all believe that in order to succeed, they need to replicate Silicon Valley. And I truly believe that every culture, this is true, at a country level, an individual level, an organizational level, is unique and has something unique to offer. And so particularly when I was out in Asia, I was working with innovation ecosystems in like the Philippines, Southeast Asia, and in Japan. They were all asking, how can we be like Silicon Valley? And I think that's the wrong question. I think the question is, what do you have that's unique, and how can you leverage that for the benefit of the broader ecosystem? So I think there's a lot of valuable stuff out there. We just have to get people to see it.
And I love that. That's a powerful perspective too, because I think even when I read stuff about kind of the innovation that's happening in places in economies like Africa and specifically Nigeria and Ghana, it's almost as if how can we replicate something overseas, but more importantly, well, how can you create a different ecosystem within your local area? And it's a powerful perspective, because I think Silicon Valley is often seen as a beacon, and we both live in Silicon Valley. It's awesome, we love it, and there's things that are traditional about it and innovative about it, and just very interesting about it. But every locale is different. I really align on that, and I think the challenge now too, moving forward, when it comes to the future of work and just technology, is that what are you doing if you're an ecosystem builder, or if you're looking to be an entrepreneur? How are you thinking global, but also executing at a local level as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the thing that blows my mind about Silicon Valley is that, and I think we're seeing this now, obviously play out on a national stage, but when you have systems that have produced success, they reinforce themselves. And so there's very little incentive to change. And so while there's a lot that we can learn here, I think we're also in a lot of ways somewhat handicapped when it comes to building something different, because there's so many examples of how what we did before really worked well. So I think especially now outside of Silicon Valley, there's such an incredible opportunity to build something truly different from the ground up.
Yeah, true. So I want to ask you, because one of the things you're really passionate about when it comes to the future of work is not just how people are going to work, it's how they live and make money, right? And I think it really speaks to the humanity that we're going to start seeing in the future, right? And right now we're seeing it where millions of people have been furloughed, and there's economic riots, and there's really low motivation, right? People are really struggling right now. What are the human rights issues that you believe we need to be addressing as we continue to build this future?
It's a great question, and I'm so glad that you're asking about it and that we're thinking about it. I mean, the reason I'm so passionate about the future of work is because I do believe that our work is a critical part of who we are as humans. And so, the only thing you do more than work over the course of your lifetime is sleep. So I
which we love too.
Right, which is great too. But I mean, so I think looking at work and the employer and jobs as a lens through which we can really affect changes in all aspects of people's lives is really important. But in terms of human rights issues, I mean, look, I think we need to first eliminate systematic injustices that result from operating in a world of institutions that were built by the majority, right? Yeah. And I think in a lot of cases, it's not any one person's fault, but they just couldn't have anticipated how these systems would play out over time. And so it's time that we change them and acknowledge that. And so I think that's number one. Providing equal access to opportunity is really important. But on top of that, we need to create cultures and systems that allow for people that are not part of the majority, whatever that means, whether it's racial or gender-wise, sexuality, anything else. I mean, we need to create cultures and systems that allow them to succeed. And I mean, I am not African-American, so I've never lived that experience, but being, post Me Too, I think there were a lot of opportunities in venture capital where all of a sudden there was this awareness that people didn't have women as part of their teams, and they were on this desperate hiring spree to bring women in. And I'm very closely connected to a lot of women that went through that process. And once you're in the door, you see very clearly that this is not a system that will allow you to succeed.
Yeah.
And so I think we really need to be committed to that. But I think that requires building new systems from the ground up, because it's very hard to change things that have worked in the past. So I think those are, just a few of the issues there. But
And what I love, do you think this is kind of like an area where also there's opportunities to invest in like things that tools and technology that help change these systems in a sense?
yes, absolutely. I think there's a lot of ways in which new infrastructure can support change. But I also think that just investing in new systems, period. So, I mean, I'm a big fan. I think, Sheryl Sandberg had Lean In, and I'm happy for her that was something that resonated at that time. But today, I think the mantra should be lean out. I mean, if something is not built for you to succeed, get the fuck out of there and start something new. Because you won't change it. And it is a terrible time for the economy right now, but we're also in a position where a lot of people don't have much to lose. And so you might as well start something that will work for you in the future. So yeah.
That's a powerful. No, that's a powerful thought. That's a powerful thought. What type of company do you believe will succeed in this future?
Yeah, I mean, I believe that the future of work is 5 things: digital, distributed, data-driven, and even more importantly, dynamic and diverse. So I think the companies that will succeed in the future it's completely dependent upon their relationship with change. And I keep going back to this idea of anti-fragility, which is a great book. And he talks about this idea that a fragile organization breaks when it's faced with pressure. A resilient organization breaks and then figures out how to return itself to its previous state. But an anti-fragile organization actually thrives and grows from breaking. It becomes better on the other side of that. And, nobody could have anticipated that COVID would impact the world in the way that it has. It's a truly, truly black swan event. And I think we're seeing that only those that can adapt will survive. But those that can adapt quickly and intelligently will win. And so I think in the future, you really have to be both diverse and dynamic to, 1, see these risks coming, and then 2, figure out the right strategy to actually benefit from them as opposed to, be ruined by them.
That's such a powerful, and I love, and you're referring to Nassim Taleb, right?
Yes.
Correct. Yeah. And his book Anti-Fragility.
And he actually wrote Black Swan also.
And Black Swan,
so which is a fangirl over here.
Super ironic, but I love, and I think someone also referred to that type of organization as an adaptive organization, and it's interesting, right? Because I think a lot, when COVID-19 happened, a lot of organizations, I use Airbnb as my favorite example. I love how they've adapted to embracing online experiences, and that's because they're listening to their host. It may not be their core thing moving forward as a company, but they're like, okay, let's adapt. Let's think about how do we still add value. And even though travel is currently broken because no one can travel, let's see what we can do to serve our hosts. And who knows what they're going to be doing in the future. But they thought in a very optimistic outlook, and they pivoted so quick. And many companies did that, right? With their conferences and events. Microsoft did it all digital. Google was thinking about going digital, and then they just canceled it. And it's interesting, right? Like, I think anti-fragile organizations are going to be a really new thing moving forward.
Definitely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So I want to talk to you a little bit about, right now there's thousands of entrepreneurs. Before COVID, I think entrepreneurship was really cool, is what someone would tell me. What are the opportunities right now for entrepreneurs who want to build a new future? What are the areas in terms of technology, future of work, that you think they can really latch on to?
It is such an incredible time, I think, to do that. Just generally speaking, I think we're very focused on workplace technology, healthcare technology, and financial technology. And I believe more specifically, like I'm looking for some interesting opportunities in a few different areas. One is anything that enables a flipped workplace or
Yeah.
kind of a distributed by default is another way that I'm describing it today. But this idea that everyone is working on their own, but comes into an office only really to collaborate and work with other
Yeah.
people. I think this hybrid model is really the only way forward. So any kind of tools that are enabling that new type of workflow, I'm really interested in, believe there's an interesting opportunity there. The second is, I mean, we saw this with the rise of Airbnb and Uber post financial crisis, but we're going to continue to see a rise of contractors, project-based work, freelance work. So anything in that space, which is empowering and enabling people to do more contract-based work and project-based work will be really powerful. So that's an incredible place to be focused on. I think whether it's fortunate or unfortunate, in a time where there is economic stress, as I saw at Goldman, companies are incredibly motivated to automate faster. And there are some estimates that 42% of the jobs that were eliminated as a result of COVID are never coming back. And so the way to benefit from that is by creating solutions that are automating workflows, so that I think employers are more willing than ever to look at new ways of automating kind of what was done by hand before. I'm also really interested in kind of the rise of a new generation of education platforms. I mean, whether it's K through 12 or it's higher education or it's business degrees or ongoing education. I mean, people are being forced to take their careers into their own hands.
Yeah.
And when you can't go to a campus in person and spend time there and build relationships, there is a lot of innovation necessary. And I think we've figured out how to take world-class content and bring that experience online. But the other two key pieces of education are, the brand and the trust that that confers, and the network that you build while you're there. And so if someone can figure out how to bring those into the digital realm as well, I think that would be a huge opportunity. And last, we have some investments in the space already, but mental health has really gone mainstream, and it's been an area that has been so underserved, and both systemically in terms of how insurance treats reimbursement for mental health care, how employers treat mental health care as a benefit, but also just, in terms of public perception. And I think what's happening right now is really elevating that. That's a need. And, the past, the way that we worked in the past was very physical, and therefore people suffered from a lot of ailments of the body. But in the future, the way that we're working is very digital, and we're doing work with our minds. And therefore it's natural that there's this whole new kind of realm of mental health, which will be what plagues people more than the physical ailments of the past.
Yeah, and also, I mean, speaking to your point, the conditions in which people are working in, right? People are now working from home and having to take care of family and making sure that they're highly functional professionals as well. I want to show love to the people who are tuning in. Shout out to team Stephanie and Benjamin. Thank you all so much for being a part of our conversation and listening in. But Allison, I agree with you 100%. I love how you talked a little bit about the continuous education model that could rise out of this current situation, because that's also something that you blog a lot about as well. And this flipped workplace structure, it's hybrid. The future of work is absolutely hybrid, in a sense where you do not have to be in an office to be fully functional, and it's really going to be more so for collaborating. And do you have any thoughts on how physically the workplace may change in this new future? Because companies like Amazon and Microsoft, they have like thousands of buildings. How are they gonna, like, what's gonna be like their message or their new work structure, and how do they transition when you're that big?
Yeah, the relationship to physical space will be completely different.
Yeah.
And I do believe that offices are necessary, having a place for
Mhm.
people to convene and be creative. And I think functioning in a purely distributed world, you see how much is certainly possible to get done that way, but also where the real shortcomings are. I mean, I joined a new team myself in April, and getting up to speed and understanding everyone's context and priorities and building trust so that you can have difficult conversations. All of that really does have to happen in person. And so I think what will happen is existing physical spaces will be transformed away from desks and more toward showrooms, meeting rooms, open spaces for collaboration, a place for people to convene as opposed to a place for people to be alone together, which is what offices have been in the past. And ultimately, I think that will result in a reduction of most companies' physical real estate. But it might, in the meantime, also result in a distribution of that physical real estate. So I think, there was a company, I believe it was Coinbase, when they announced that they were digital by default, which is essentially another word for flipped in my mind. They were saying that right now they have 10 floors in an office in San Francisco, and that over time they plan on changing that into, 1 floor in 10 offices in 10 cities. And so
I think Shopify also said something similar to that. They're digital by default as well.
Exactly. I'm more of a fan of distributed by default, because I think that it's this idea that like you can be in any place, but
work from anywhere.
Right. But there still is an in-person component that has to happen, and it does fall on the employer to provide that space.
Yeah. That's true. That's powerful. So shout out to Stella, who's saying this is a great conversation as well. So let's talk on something that we mentioned and we were going to touch on a little bit earlier, and I think is super contextual for the times that we're living in right now, with everything going on with the riots. What are your thoughts? 2 to 3 ways you think we can create more equality in the workplace moving forward? Because I think we are currently facing that economic tension of, due to the things that are happening in terms of in society, and also in the workplace, in a sense where, certain communities have been marginalized and feel as if they've been disenfranchised. They don't feel as if there's equity, right? And diversity and equity inclusion has been such a thing for the last 5 years. Where do you see, whether it be technology or us even just as a community, as a movement of people, creating that more equitable workplace structure moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I actually just read Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's op-ed in the LA Times, and I want to quote him because I think it's so powerful what he said, which is, racism in America is like dust in the air. It seems invisible, even if you're choking on it, until you let the sun in. Then you see it's everywhere. As long as we keep shining that light, we have a chance of cleaning it wherever it lands, but we have to stay vigilant because it's always still in the air. So, to me, in terms of creating lasting change, one, you can't change what you can't see. And a lot of systematic discrimination is invisible to those who passively benefit from it. And, myself included, if you're part of the majority, you just have never experienced these things. And so therefore, like, you can't see them. And so the only way to shine light on it is to have a diverse team and create a culture where they can highlight inequities in a productive way. So I think making a commitment and opening up kind of especially senior level ranks to people from all over is like, nothing will change if we don't do that. So that's number one. And for new companies, that means having a diverse team from day one. And two, I think, look, like, equality is not something that you pledge or you say. It's something that you do. And I mean, I myself have struggled with, well, do you post something online? Do you want to say something? And you want to, I think it's important to take a stand, but it's also like, time will tell who was serious and who did it because they wanted to be retweeted or to, not be one of the bad ones. And so I think words are important, but actions are everything. And so bringing about fundamental change in your company or your organization or a system, it requires new processes. So it's not just about kind of bringing, some more diversity to your team. It's about, how do you actually build an entirely new process for having conversations, for hiring, for assigning work, for promoting people. It's those processes that ensure that your actions are consistently move you toward a better future all the time, regardless of how you're feeling that day or what you can see or you can't. So, that's pretty general, I know, but, another piece that I've been thinking about a lot is as we move toward a more flipped model, we actually really need to change the incentives for how you pay people, and
Mm.
ultimately moving toward a more project-based kind of hiring and compensation plan, creating more results-driven cultures where you're setting goals and holding people accountable to those goals. I think those are examples of processes that we can change that will result in, ongoing permanent equality.
No, it's so powerful. And I think too now in a more decentralized working world, distributed working world, one of the things a good friend of mine has told me in the past is that people who are actually working remotely are more likely to get passed up for promotions because they're not as close to maybe where headquarters is, right? And I think, if we're gonna start seeing a culture where a lot of people choose to work from anywhere, work from home, hopefully there are infrastructures and cultures that support that and don't make them feel as if it's the wrong thing to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I hate the word remote, and I'm going to start a campaign to get rid of it because, I mean, look it up in the dictionary. Remote means that you're far away, you're less
Yeah.
important, you're somehow less than. So I think,
Yeah.
first of all, like just reestablishing, and that's where the by default part of these models, digital by default, distributed by default, is so important
Mm.
because it changes this inherent hierarchy that we've had between HQ centric folks and remote folks. And I think it's really important to have a universal flipped model. You can't just have
Mm.
it relevant for some people and not for others. And that's where I think Facebook is making a really big mistake around the way they're structuring. Oh,
Mm.
you're going to get, yeah, we're going to remain remote, but you need to have certain levels on your reviews in order to be able to have that privilege. And we're going to cut your pay if you move to a different city. That is just absolutely the wrong approach to
Mm.
creating lasting change. It's basically just making an announcement that you're going to change, but then actually putting in place systems that only perpetuate what you've been doing before.
Mm.
So I think that's where I say, I'm talking about new infrastructure and new processes, and that requires actually just starting clean and saying, we're flipped, we're distributed by default, and then you don't have that inequality that we've been talking about.
Yeah. So I want to show love to my great friend, William Tyrone Cunningham, who is amazing and lives in Seattle. He's saying, understand that this journey is for all of us to take. Hopefully the pressure correlates to diamonds. The why is for everyone. Thoughts on this, Allison?
The why is for everyone?
The why
What do you
is
mean?
for everyone. I do not know exactly what the why is abbreviated for, but I
Hmm.
believe he's talking about the motivation for us to change and create a more equitable structure.
Yeah, I mean, I think this, as I said when we first started talking, I mean, what an incredible time to
Yeah.
be alive and to be building the future. I am an optimist, but I am also a cynic. And I truly believe that people don't do what they should do, they do what they have to do.
Yeah.
And so we've been having conversations for, I mean, decades, hundreds of years around
Yeah.
equality and changing the way things work. But there was no reason for people to do things differently. And, as a result of sort of, the protests and everything happening right now with George Floyd and the attention that is shining on racism in America, and COVID becoming a permanent reality that we can't go back to the office in the same way that we used to. I mean, people have to change. There is
Yeah.
no alternative if you want to survive.
Yeah.
So this is a really unique time, and we should all be participating in it, and taking advantage of it because it's a really, really special moment.
I love it. If you've been loving this live episode that I'm having with Allison, please share it to your network. There's someone that needs to watch this episode. Allison has been an amazing guest and shared so much in-depth information. So definitely share this and like it. Share it with your network, please, please, please. Allison, where can people find out more of your work?
Yeah, you can find me on Medium. I do a lot of writing there. You can find me on Twitter at Allison_Baum, although I have to admit I'm not a big fan of Twitter, but sometimes I tweet, or, follow me on LinkedIn, and let's get in touch. If you're building something that I should know about, please reach out, and I'd love to help however I can.
Make sure to reach out if you're building anything to change the future. It is a wonderful time to be alive. Allison, thank you so much for being on the show today. And hopefully we should have you on a future episode.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is really great and such an amazing conversation. So thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye. With that said, thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of Unleashing the Future of Work, A Guy podcast. Please continue to safely protest, stay safe, and do good and build something that you're passionate about. If you are interested in being on a future episode of Unleashing the Future of Work, A Guy podcast, please reach out to us at UTFOW.com if you're interested in being a guest or sponsor. And more importantly, we are going to be launching our beta soon for Guide, the bite-sized skills training platform for remote teams. So check us out if you're interested in being one of the early creators that are a part of our creator community. We would love to have you. So definitely check us out and sign up for our early beta access program. All right, y'all. I hope you all are staying safe, healthy, and doing good and building what you're passionate about. I will talk to you soon. Peace and love.